I woke up late and I hadn't even packed. And so I threw everything in the suitcase and rushed out the door and jumped in my car. And I was going over a bridge and I was passing a car. And as I came up, I came close to hitting the car when I was almost passing. So I swerved to miss. And then I nosedived into the median. I was thrown from the car and was found face down, turning blue. I don't remember seeing anything except for just this bright white light. And 6 beings standing, 3 on either side of me, and they slid their hands under me and lifted me up out of my body. And as I came out, they were just radiating total acceptance, total love, total okayness. They were showing me what I had come to do and what I had done and what would be possible from here on out. I was an intuitive child. I had a lot of mystical experiences and saw beings, light beings in my room once peek around the door, and I saw disincarnate beings and didn't really understand what that was and thought that everybody saw that and that it was pretty normal. And then, would talk to my friends about it and they wouldn't often see it until I'd point it out and then they'd see it. And then when I was 19, or 18 after I graduated high school, I went to college and wasn't really sure why I was in college, mostly because that's what you're supposed to do. And then I lost my job, and a woman I was in classes with said, "Hey, I know how you can make a lot of money, but you got to be willing to do it." And I thought, well, I'm brave. I'll do whatever, just to make ends meet and get by. And this was working in a strip bar. So at least at the bar, these people were throwing a lot of money at me just to take my clothes off. At some point, they started inviting me for trips, and I agreed to go on one, thinking I would keep it on the up and up. This is an opportunity to visit other modeling agencies and to get my career outside of Kansas City started. I had a trip planned on Christmas Day with the next customer to go to Minnesota to watch a Chiefs game. I fell asleep that night in my hotel room thinking about all this. How far am I going to go with this? What am I doing? If I really cross that line between paid intimacy and or not, that it would really do soul damage and it would cause some long-term hardship for myself. Started trying to envision, okay, well, you start thinking about, well, this is what it's going to look like when I get there, and this is the attitude I'm going to take. And I realized I couldn't see myself getting to Minnesota. Couldn't see myself there. Couldn't see myself doing anything there. I'm like, why can't I imagine this? And then I realized I couldn't even imagine myself getting to the airport. I couldn't see it. And I was like, wow, that's never happened. Why can't I imagine myself getting to the airport? Why can't I imagine myself going to Minnesota, or how I'm going to navigate this situation? And then I kind of fell asleep thinking about all that. And then in the middle of the night, I sat up in bed and I woke up and I realized I'm going to be in a car accident and I'm going to be lucky if I survive. And then I thought, oh, self-fulfilling prophecy, don't jinx yourself, don't think about that, just push that away, don't even feed that information. And I fell back asleep and kind of forgot about it. And then flash forward, I woke up that morning and went downstairs and we did the Christmas thing. We opened gifts and Santa had come under the tree, gifts. And I went back upstairs to take a nap before I had to leave for the airport. And when I woke up late and realized I was running late and I hadn't even packed. And so I threw everything in the suitcase and rushed out the door and jumped in my car and ran through town and got on the highway. At that time, cell phones were those bag phones that you plug into the cigarette lighter, and I had one, and it was on the floorboard of the passenger side of my car. So I wanted to bend over and pick it up, and I was going over a bridge, and I was passing a car, and I thought, well, okay, let me at least go over the bridge and pass this car before I make this maneuver. And so I was over the bridge, and I was just about past the car, So I took off my seatbelt and I bent to pick over the cell phone out of the passenger floorboard. And as I came up, I came close to hitting the car when I was almost passing. So I swerved to miss. I probably fishtailed like I remembered. And then I nosedived into the median. And then I flipped end over end across the median, which was about the width of two car widths. And then across the other two lanes of traffic. And I was thrown from the car and was found face down, turning blue. I don't remember a lot of that moment. I was knocked out pretty quickly. I do have some memories of seeing the scene from above, almost like there's like a white, hazy, I don't know if it was an overcast day, but just sort of the swirly white mist, and looking down and seeing a lot of lights and seeing people, and then seeing my body and wanting to come back in it, and then getting in it, but it felt like this empty shell, like just this realization that nothing works in here, nothing moves, I can't access anything, and that it's just dead. And then getting back out, and then trying again to get back in, and just realizing that it's useless. Now what I remember is waking up and opening my eyes in this very white, bright lit room. You know, maybe it was the hospital room, I don't know. I don't remember seeing anything except for just this bright white light. And 6 beings standing, 3 on either side of me, very tall, very bright white lit, glowing and shiny, and with a lot of love in their face and in their energy. And they slid their hands under me and lifted me up out of my body. And as I came out, I remember standing in this room with them, and they were just radiating so much love and okayness. And it's like, you know, really connecting with family, but like real family that doesn't have baggage with it, like we're all used to. Just total acceptance, total love, total okayness. And they embraced me, and remembered standing with them, and they were showing me what I had come to do and what I had done and what would be possible from here on out. So they lifted me out of my body, and standing there and just being around these very tall and illuminated and loving presence of these beings that were very bright. And when I say bright, it's like they were this bright white light, but it feels very loving and uplifting and okayness about it, just in the way that their energy felt. Then we came to what I've learned now is the life review. I especially remember how my interactions with people I cared about had affected them, unbeknownst to me, and how things I had said to them and the energy I had put off to them had really hurt them. And the thing is that when you see a life review, you don't just see it visually, you feel it. You feel not just what you felt at that time, but how what you did made that other person feel. And I felt that pain in the heart. And then they showed me how my choosing to leave would affect other people. And they explained to me that we're all connected here, and that all of our energies are in like a big matrix connected together. And what one energy or one person does, says, experiences, even thinks and feels, sends ripples through the matrix. And the best way that I've come to explain this is like looking out of an airplane at night at a city where you see all the lights, and each of us is a light. And if one light is to have a surge, a power surge, and go out, then it creates a power surge through the whole grid that affects people, lots of people directly around them, and then even people all over the globe that it could affect. And that my light going out would create that ripple effect through the grid. And they also showed me how my leaving would also affect my family. I later learned that, in fact, there were my family, my aunts, my uncles, my parents, my brother, were camping in the waiting room for days on end, just waiting for those brief moments that they could come in and see me in ICU. I then learned later that there were hundreds and hundreds of people in churches around the area who were writing these little prayergrams, these little yellow slips of paper where they write their prayers for someone and then they mail that to the person. And I had hundreds of prayergrams that came from these churches, these people that I had no clue who they were, that were praying for me to make it through. Then they showed me what would be possible from here on out. So during this time, after this experience with them standing, the next thing I remember is looking from a corner of my hospital room down at my bed and seeing my mom sitting there with my hand in hers, and just as though she's praying, and feeling the energy of the suffering she was going through. I remember feeling how my mother felt in that experience and thinking, I can't do this to her. I can't cause all this suffering. And feeling the energy of that hospital, you know, even of the waiting room where my family was, and just all the energy coming to support me here, and that I couldn't do it. You know, I had to come back. And so the next thing I remember is sitting in a circle of these beings, and there were now 12 of them, and they were all very tall, very light-filled beings, and they were debating whether I should go or stay. And the next thing I know, I'm starting to wake up. And I remember opening my eyes at one point, and I was, you know, I had had so much damage done to my body. I had broke 6 ribs, 4 front and back, punctured a lung. I had head injuries. I cracked my left mastoid process. I broke my chin off. I now have metal plates in my face holding that back together. Cracked my pelvis, broke my ankle. So I couldn't speak. And I was laying there and I opened my eyes and I was looking at this male friend that was there. And I remember thinking, wake up, wake up, wake up, trying to wake him up. And at some point he did, and he opened his eyes and he was like, Shawna, you're awake. And then I remember feeling the room and feeling that pregnant potentiality, that okayness, that loving supportiveness was there in the room too, that I could just sense that it was the fabric that this whole existence is made of, that I felt it on the other side and that it is here too, that it all comes from that. When you're coming back from the other side, it is not like the movies where, you know, you just drop in and wake up and like, hi, what'd I miss? And start talking. It's really hard to keep yourself in body and to come back in. And at that point, I couldn't hold that wakeful state anymore. And so I just let go. And it's like falling backward. It's not like falling into emptiness because you feel suspended and held, but you just let go and surrender and fall back. So it was that first day in the hospital was when I really started coming around, thanks to this new contraption they have of they strap you in a chair and then they stick you in this bubbling warm water of a hot tub. And that's when I started really waking back up. Started coming back around after that. They had projected to my parents that it would be 4 to 6 months before I could rehab, and that I would still need mental assistance, and I would probably never live on my own again. I'd always be handicapped. And I got out in 4 weeks, left just on an ankle boot and a cane, and still needed some surgery for the ankle and still needed some surgery for the face, but most of it was intact, and got out of the hospital. And then in February of '94, and then by that fall was back in school and living on my own again and driving and back in college. Coming back into 3D reality was really challenging. I felt the world and others as though it was me. Boundaries are very fluid. It does, you know, other people's feelings and emotions came in fully like they're my own. And so I started journaling, and I would just sort of free write and dump on the page everything that was just going through emotionally and thought-wise onto the page. And after doing that, after a while, I'd start to realize that something started responding to my questions. I'd go back and read it and be like, wow, I didn't know I wrote that. How did I write that? How did I know that? And this is when I met the counsel on this side, when they started giving me advice and counsel, helping me through what was going on and what my journey, where I was at in the journey and what I was dealing with on this side. When I really first started coming out of the coma, I started really waking up. The one thing I really remembered was that my purpose here was to help people remember who they are, wake up and remember who they are as these light beings in themselves that I saw in the eyes of my friend and that I see in every single person I meet through their eyes, this bright lightness that they are, to remember that in themselves and to find their way back home to the truth of who they are, that this existence isn't all there is, that loving presence is the truth. So the journaling really helped me connect with the counsel and go through this period of time where I was really depressed and not sure how to even do this purpose and how to find my way. You know, I went into working thinking nursing was the route, and then that wasn't really right. And then I went into thinking maybe psychology was the route, but then that didn't really feel right. And then lo and behold, out of a bunch of chance serendipitous happenings, I met a massage therapist, and she offered to teach my partner at the time and I some massage techniques. When I met her, we had a really nice connection. So the second time I met her, I said, you know what? Why am I so miserable? I have this, everything I'm supposed to want, right? We're supposed to want to have a car. We're supposed to want to further our lives in college. We're supposed to have a partner, and we're supposed to have housing. I've got all that, and I'm miserable. Why? And she said, maybe you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I said, what am I supposed to be doing? And she said, well, maybe you should go check out this massage school. I was open to whatever, and I walked into the massage school, and the moment I walked in, something just opened in me and said, this is it. This is where you're supposed to be going. And so I began massage school, and I graduated massage school in about 2 years. While I would be working with people, information just would come in. I would just know things about them. I would just know what was sticking in their lives, or know what needed to shift or change, or notice the perspective shift they needed, or something. And I didn't understand it. It just sort of downloaded. And sometimes they would be so insistent in my head that I would just have to say something. Almost embarrassed to, because it's kind of out of the blue. So after a while, that's what people came for. I never talked about it. I mostly hold up around it because I was used to people not believing what I had been through on the paranormal side of it all, on the mystical side of it all. People could understand the miraculous physical healing, but they couldn't take in the mystical counsel part. So I just journaled as my support system at night, and then did my work in the office. And more, I would just know what people were needing. Not always, I couldn't master and make it happen. It just spontaneously happened. And then people would come more and more for that. And then at some point, the counsel told me, it's time for you to meet your husband's spiritual teacher, who happened to live in Santa Cruz. So through a bunch of serendipity and divine alignment, my husband and I, my family, all moved to Santa Cruz, California, and began my journey of opening up about this near-death experience. I ended up meeting Raymond Moody, who wrote the first book about NDEs called Life After Life, and we began a project here that was in aspiration of bringing NDE to the mainstream, and began speaking at International Association of Near-Death Studies groups, and started my practice here in California, where I still practice. And in moving to California, I learned that I needed to be more open about this whole mystical part of my near-death experience and really talking about it. And so moving to California was the first time that I spoke openly about it. And since then I've spoken quite a bit and done several podcasts. And it began the first time that I started really opening and revealing and really diving into this more mystical side of what had happened to me. Really what's being called to do now is to help people integrate those experiences. So we're awake, And now we come back to this contraction, and I don't want people to have to go through what I went through with the contraction and have to try to find their way, 30 years of finding their way through it all here like I did. So now my business is shifting to offering people how you can integrate this and helping you integrate into bringing those insights and that reality that you know is truth into this world today.